Hello and welcome to the agenda on Labour, Politics Social. Phil, I keep doing it.
Get it right.
Get it right. I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to get straight into it today. I went over to the WhatsApp to give Phil the link to this, and I had 51, count them, 5-1.
I started an argument.
Missed, and honestly, I'd been on it like a couple of for the Politics Social group on WhatsApp. 51 unread messages, and I'd been on it like a few minutes earlier. So I should introduce you. I'm Graham Hughes, and this is Phil Morehouse. Graham Hughes of Politics Social fame, and obviously Phil Morehouse of a different bias. Yes, Phil, tell us. Go on. What was your beef? What were you arguing about?
Well, you can build up to it. So several people involved in Just Stop Oil have been sentenced to prison, and it's quite long sentences. So now you can look at it from various angles. You can look at it from the angle of, at the same time as these people have been sent to prison, I think for the first time. I don't think these people have been, so I don't think they're like people who've been sentenced to prison, come out, done the same thing, gone back. So they seem excessive for what is effectively a non-violent crime. At the same time, when people who are being convicted for violent crimes have been given suspended sentences. So in terms of the optics of it, it looks really bad and really heavy-handed. But then there's the other side of it. So if you then, because you could say the reason why people who've been convicted of criminal offences, particularly violent offences against women, and they're being given suspended sentences because specifically because prisons are full. And you look at that and you say, well, okay, that can be dealt with by, first of all, Labour already have plans to halve violence against women over the next 10 years. And the way they're doing that is by, first of all, making sure that there are dedicated units within every 999 room and every police force to deal with that specific issue. The court system should be built back up so you don't have delays of multiple years, because that's really horrendous for victims. That crushes a lot of cases to begin with. And then the very low conviction rates, because after so much time, it's all very difficult. And even when you are convicted, oh, sorry, there's no room in the prisons, we can't send you after all. So, things like that can be dealt with. So if we look at this in isolation, from the public's point of view. So in terms of Just Stop Oil, so you ask about, have Just Stop Oil met their objectives? We don't know what their objectives are.
Well, we think it's to stop oil.
Well, you say that,
yeah, but
here's the thing: if you're going to protest against, you must have some particular people in mind. So think about what you're trying to do. What they ultimately, if you ask them what they want, and let's assume they genuinely do want to deal with the climate emergency because that's their stated aim. And I've no doubt many of the people involved do genuinely want that. So what do you want to happen? You either want the actual corporations who do most of the polluting to change their behavior, or you want the government to legislate to force a change of behavior. It's one of those two things. So if you want the corporations to change their behavior, then you need to inconvenience the corporations. Does blocking the M25 do that? No, it does not. If you want to force the government to legislate, then you've got two choices there, actually. You've got carrot and stick. You can either lobby the government and explain why your way of thinking is the right way, or inconvenience them to force, to do what you want in order for you to go away. Or you can get public opinion on your side to the point where it becomes a major voting issue, at which point you compel politicians to do what you want that way. Those are the ways to do it. Now, blocking the M25, and they've done other things as well, but this was the thing for which they were imprisoned. That is an attack on the public. Now,
could I just point out? Hang on. Yeah. Can I just point out at this point they didn't actually block it themselves? This was for the organising.
Yeah.
Blocking.
But they, but nonetheless, they did.
This might come
without
in.
that organisation, it wouldn't have happened.
This might come important later in this conversation.
Well,
but
I'm just trying to explain
important distinction
from the public's point of view. Their entire operation, if it is indeed in like, because you can be cynical about this, if it is indeed to try and alleviate the climate emergency, to take action against the climate emergency, from the public's point of view, this is how it's worked, right? So this is what the jury were told in terms of the consequences of this action. So let's go down some of the things that happened. So some people missed flights. So you've knackered some people's holidays. You go, okay, fairly low scale, but nonetheless, you've harmed people whose support you might have otherwise had, and you're not going to get. Next one down, people missed funerals. Now, Boris Johnson got into a lot of shit over Partygate, specifically because people couldn't attend to like their loved ones' needs at the end of life. So blocking people from attending funerals is not going to go down well with the public. We're not just talking about the members of the public who were themselves disrupted. The wider public, you tell them that this protest, right? First of all, it doesn't make sense, because how are you protesting against climate polluters by attacking members of the public or spraying some stones orange, right? So first of all, the protest doesn't even make sense. Second of all, you're now saying people miss funerals. Students missed mock exams, so you were damaging people's education. Children with special needs were blocked from being able to get their medication because their medication was at school. They were delayed getting to school, the schools where they had their medication. So you had kids with medical issues who were delayed getting treatment. There was someone with an aggressive form of, and the court was told all this, someone with an aggressive form of cancer, because they missed their appointment at the clinic, that treatment had to be delayed another 2 months, which of course means the chances of treatment become less certain. Something like that on its own is straight away public kryptonite.
Yes. As the Tories found out, because I would accuse them of a conspiracy to cause a public nuisance.
Others have made that
for the same reasons, the cost, the traffic jams that we're seeing in Dover, the fact people can't get their medicines, the fact people can't go to funerals. I mean,
but the public's turned
literally the Tories literally did all that stuff, but they aren't in jail for 5 years.
No, because that's not illegal.
But they conspired to cause a public nuisance.
Doesn't matter. It's not illegal.
That was the crime.
No.
So can we get charges against them? Because they got together and they conspired in secret, because we're not allowed to see what happens in cabinet, to cause a public nuisance.
Doesn't matter. The people empowered them to do that. They did not empower JSO to do what they did.
No, but hang on. Whoa. If it's against the law, it's against the law.
Yeah,
you can't say
the
people put them into power and so therefore they can murder, but other people can't. If it's a law...
Yeah, you can.
Really?
Austerity policies are known to have killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That could be argued as manslaughter, not actual premeditated murder.
Or it would have been. It would have been. The government are taken to court all the time over their policies, and no court has said that, because it's not actually illegal. The state can actually kill you.
The state
it's not allowed to order hit squads to go out and murder you. That would be against the human rights laws. But in actual fact, policies can directly lead to deaths, and it's not illegal. That is the law.
So what about conspiracy to cause a public nuisance? That's the exact wording of the...
Because they will say that was not their intention. They will say all the disruption was down, and it probably was. It was incompetence.
But they weren't. They were warned about it.
Yeah,
they
but
were told if you go for Brexit,
they didn't believe it. They didn't believe it. Just Stop Oil knew they were creating disruption. And they knew they were creating disruption with the public. I haven't even gone through the list yet. I haven't even talked about how they blocked the delivery of food to hospitals. Things like this turn the public off you. So it doesn't matter whether you want to argue. You can try and argue the moral side, and lots of people are arguing the morals. You're arguing equivalence. You're arguing that. So you're actually it's the same
another example
then. The Tories are fine.
Another example then. Forget about the Tories for 1 minute.
I'm going to
How about someone who drinks and drives and causes a collision on the motorway? No one gets killed, but because of their actions and because of the result of their actions that they knew could possibly happen, they have disrupted all those things that you just mentioned.
Is
because
it illegal?
The motorway had to be shut for half a day.
Is it illegal?
No, but they don't get done for that.
But so is it? Therefore, it's not.
As a consequence of their action, the motorway got closed.
No. That wasn't. They didn't intend that consequence.
But they must have known that was a considered outcome of that situation.
Not if the law says. Not if judges and juries are led by the law, not their own. Like a jury can acquit someone. I mean, we know, like if we go to an actual protest, a genuine protest, chucking the Colston statue into the drink, and the jury acquitted those people. They did it, and in theory it was illegal, and they could have found them guilty, but they decided on the public. They decided it wasn't in the public's interest that they be convicted. And it was as simple as that. And they were acquitted.
That's nothing to do with the drink driving charge. If you get done for drink driving and causing a crash on the motorway, that's what you get done for. You don't also get this ancillary charge of causing a public nuisance because you blocked up the motorway for hours on end, and people couldn't get their medicine and people couldn't get to funerals.
But no, because the damage, the criminal offence was driving whilst drunk. Now, there's extra penalties for the consequences, but the criminal, whereas in this case, the criminal charge was for, these people were deliberately stopping food getting to hospitals, stopping other people sick people getting to hospitals, stopping sick people getting medical treatment. They knew that was going to happen. You've got some super chats if you want to do those first before we go on, by the way.
Okay. Johnny Cophead, thank you very much for the £5 super chat there. But they messed with the almighty automobile. Or am I repeating myself? Johnny, you are repeating yourself, but you're absolutely right still. You really don't want to mess with oil and the automobile corporations. They are far too powerful.
But they're not messing with them.
Well, yeah.
The oil companies love them. The oil companies are going, what are we going to do about all these JSA protests against us? JSA aren't protesting against us. They're protesting against people using our products. Oh, Sodom then.
Yeah, true. But Brad W, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The government should bring in anti-storm legislation demanding whether not block roads with water and debris above a certain volume. Wink, wink. Yes, Brad, I agree. Thank you very much for the super chat. And Johnny Copperhead says, Graham, you need to realise the difference between law and justice. The law is rarely just. I don't disagree at all. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, I don't think that justice is particularly just in this country. Because
if you tell people
these situations,
as a result of those actions, which wasn't, they're protesting against oil companies or polluters, which, maybe are large scale users of oil, or the government, whoever they're protesting against, it's like, you tell people, okay, but the people I'm not reading in these sentencing remarks any damage that was done to an oil executive or like anyone who runs an oil refinery or anything. No, it's people in hospital that suffered, people who were trying to get to hospital who suffered, people who were just trying to get to work who suffered, kids with medical issues who were like kept from their schools which had their medication, kids who were trying to prepare for exams. These were the people who were harmed. And the public, it doesn't matter what you think about whether this form of protest is acceptable or not. The public don't. And as I keep saying, and I'll say it on any number of issues, I am in politics.
I don't necessarily think that this form of protest is a good way of doing it, because I think you're right. It just turns people away from you. And I said this the other week when they spray painted Stonehenge. If Just Stop Oil was being funded by big oil, that wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't be like, oh, shiver me timbers, blow me over with a feather. Or whatever.
It was the single most insane thing possible. They were literally protesting against the Stone Age.
Yes.
Like,
how dare you?
Pre-industrial than that.
Dare you make these monolithic structures? Anyway,
impressive for its time, because those stones came from Wales. I mean, that was impressive. But it was done without oil. They were literally attacking a structure where the stones came from piss in Wales. For those who don't know, that's a long way from Wiltshire. Yeah. And they did it without oil. They should be celebrating. Why can't we be more like this?
Yoni is saying Just Stop Oil should have inconvenienced MPs, not the general public. I think they should have gone after the oil companies. I think you're right on that, Phil. However, I do think that jailing people for this long for non-violent protest, and yes, it does inconvenience people, but so does the coronation. So does the Olympics. So does any major
but
football event. When
people like
after
those.
the Coppers in Liverpool are at the footy every Saturday. You know, it's like,
But
of
people
course there's
demand
going to
those
be
things
knock-on
happen.
effects.
People
But there's going to be
demand those
knock-on
things happen.
effects that
There are, but
where
people
you can say
want
this
that.
happened as a result.
Yeah, but people want it. No one wants someone to block the M25 to say, oh, there's a climate emergency. It's like, yeah, you've just made it worse because now actually those people are using more petrol. Thanks very much.
Stephen,
it's a protest that doesn't make sense.
Stephen Weir is saying they do anything to get headlines. That's the point, get people talking. However, I
don't talk about that.
Yeah, they just moan about the protest that's inconvenienced them. However, I mean, if they go over to someone and sprinkle glitter over them for their protest, that's going to get more coverage and not really harm anyone. But then,
if you talk about the glitter thing, no one knew what that protest was about. Like
the one at Labour, yeah, they thought it was just Stop Oil, but it wasn't.
No. Well, it depends because people just jumped to conclusions. There were some people who thought it was like a Palestinian protest or something. Was that?
No, it wasn't.
Was it?
No,
was that too early?
No, the Labour protest was a guy.
I know what it was. It was for proportional representation.
Yeah, but when it happened, I thought it was just Stop Oil.
Right. I think there was some other, because I think it might have been round about the time. But basically people just jumped to other conclusions because it was like there were certain groups that you would have thought might try and stage a protest against Starmer, and you would not have thought it was for that. And it wasn't clear from their protest that it was. But the same applies to the JSO. Whenever JSO do something, it's reported in the news. What's reported in the news is the disruption. The only time you ever, because it's saying, oh, they're raising the issue. No, they've never raised the issue. The only person who's ever raised the issue, which is climate emergency, in the news related to JSO was ironically, I've forgotten his pissing name now, Vince Dale, isn't it?
Vince Dale, yeah.
Vince Dale, who was quite good, but even he's realised that their methods are shy. So what had happened is sometimes he'd go onto a programme and then he would make the argument, and okay, that was filtering through to some people. But that wasn't Joe's Just Stop Oil. That was him.
We've got Duke Vengeance in the chat, which I think is making quite a good point here. Basing judgments on public perception isn't justice, it's vigilante. It's vigilantism.
That is also how it works, though. So this is why I keep saying stupid allies are not allies. If you're thinking to yourself, well, the climate emergency is really important, it's more important than some orange paint that can wash off a stone, and you think, therefore, I support Just Stop Oil. It's like, but Just Stop Oil are harming the cause because they're actually distracting from the climate emergency.
I agree with this. I think that these censuses that have been handed out are absolutely disgusting. I think that giving people 4 or 5 years for organising a non-violent protest, first time offence, fuck off. No way. That is completely out of order. I think 4 or 5 months would have been too much. I think they should have got a suspended sentence. Don't do it again. But there's an argument as well that this is what they wanted. They wanted to blow up the whole anti-protest laws. But would you go as far as to say that because of Just Stop Oil, we've ended up with these bloody anti-protest laws?
The irony is these sentences are as a result of their work, because the public order bill, which took away a lot of genuine peaceful protest rights, was, I mean, you could say to yourself, the Tories had the numbers to get it through and stuff like that. Actually, a lot of Conservative MPs did not like it. It was not at all certain it would have, a bill would have passed, a public order bill would have passed, because there was some stuff in there that actually was fine. But in terms of the really draconian measures, it is not at all clear that it would have made it through the House of Commons. There was actually a lot of difficulty with it. And in fact, even then, they had to add some stuff at the House of Lords stages because some of their MPs really weren't going for it. So there was the potential for actually a lot of the worst bits of the public order bill to have been toned down by Tory MPs who really didn't like it. And then Just Stop Oil suddenly made them publicly popular. They made them popular. So Just Stop Oil have materially made anti-protest laws more draconian. That is the impact of what they've done. It doesn't matter whether they're some shady organisation that's playing everyone for fools and that's what they really want, or whether they are genuinely trying to protest against climate change and they're just too stupid to know how to do it. The actual material impact has been they have helped the government make anti-protest laws easier to pass through Parliament.
So maybe they are funded by big oil.
They may be.
Jeff True says you counted your own argument on Stonehenge. You got lots of publicity, harm no one. Made people question
Publicity
what was more
for what?
important to them.
No, they didn't. They didn't
But
make
it
anyone's
didn't,
question
because
anything.
I already supported their cause, which is to stop oil, because I hate oil. And I don't think they got anyone else on board with it. And it reminds me a little bit of the previous lot in Labour, who
They pissed off the Druids.
you know, they excited their own base, but they were terrible at getting anyone who would not necessarily agree with them on other things to come over to their side. And that was a huge mistake. And we need those people on side.
I would say they're much more like that, in that it wasn't just that they failed to bring others on side. They actively pissed off people who were already on side.
Yeah.
And that's what Just Stop
the
Oil
pagans.
have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who in a sort of anti-industrialization movement pisses off Druids?
Yeah.
How does that make sense?
True. Druids aren't known for their love of the automobile. I just want to say at this point, I've just put a comment in the comments, in the chat, sorry. I'm not modding the comments at the moment. They're just really, really strict, and that's not to do with me. You'll find this on all videos on YouTube at the moment since the unaliving attempt on Donald Trump last weekend.
Politics is crazy this year across the world, and YouTube is an international platform.
Yeah, so, but in another way, I would rather it was too strict than too liberal, and I don't want people putting horrible, nasty, bigoted, transphobic, homophobic, racist, sexist rhetoric into the chat. So yeah, I'm very sorry if you get caught up in it. Maybe try a synonym, and before you send your message, remember to copy and paste it so you've got it in case it disappears and you need to change some of the words. Nova 510 says, isn't stopping a motorway a huge offence anyway? Isn't that why when HGVs protest, they don't stop moving?
So, I mean, sometimes you will have an offence that might, in theory, but if it's too vague, and see what happens sometimes when you create a specific there's two reasons why sometimes governments will create a very specific offence for something that already appears to be illegal. One is because they'll look at the fact that there's a very low conviction rate in courts, and they'll find out that it's because the law's too vague, so they need a specific form of it. So upskirting, for example, became a specific offence, even though there were other offences you could have charged someone with, but it was too difficult to secure conviction, so they created a specific offence of upskirting.
Yeah.
And then you have other ones which are created, again, bringing into this, because something happens, it gets splashed all over the media, and the public demand action, and the government go, well, it's already illegal, but yeah, we'll jump on the bandwagon and we'll come up with a specific, and all governments will do this. Labour are going to do this, by the way, they all do it. They'll come up with a specific offence, and then barristers will come out going, you could already charge someone for this. You don't need a specific offence. This is bollocks. But they'll do it anyway because it's popular.
Yeah.
Now, as long as it doesn't actually criminalise people who fundamentally shouldn't be criminalised, I don't have a massive issue with that, other than it's a waste of parliamentary time. But there's always something that wastes parliamentary time, because at the end of the day, if politicians wish to remain in government, they have to be popular.
Yes, that's true. But also, I mean, like when I see people who I think should be on the same side as us, and this is what annoyed me so much. Well, one of the things that annoyed me so much about the last leader of the opposition, and they're actively doing things.
The last leader of the opposition was Keir Starmer.
Last leader of Labour before this one. Yeah, that's a good point. Very, very happy point actually. But yes, no. When I have people, when there are people who I think should be allies, and I'm sitting there going, "You're not helping," because this attitude is, and you see this a lot in politics, of like, I don't want a Conservative to vote for me. I don't want a Conservative to vote for Labour, and I'm like, we need them. I mean, as we live in a democracy, it's as simple as that. And if you want to get into power, you need to get people on side, even if their fundamental idea of the world is skewed and they're more capitalist than you are, are socialist. It doesn't matter. You've got to get those people on side. And with climate change, it is absolutely critical that we get as many people as possible pitching in, because top-down government regulations won't change things. It's people's behavior that is going to change things. People, changing their lifestyle in some way in order to all of us pitch in to help alleviate the damage that's being done by climate change, because it's a bit too late to stop now.
There was some interesting polling on this today. It was polling on of people who align with certain parties, whether they prefer politicians who are willing to compromise to get things done, or whether they prefer politicians to stick to their principles no matter what. And of the major parties, which is Liberal Democrat, SNP, Labour, Conservative, Green Party, Reform UK, Plaid are not on there, sorry about that if you're a Plaid supporter. Guess which one was the most no, must stick to principles at all costs?
Labour?
No. Oh, no, they were, yeah. And the second, I don't know why you went for Labour first. That's not the obvious one to go for.
Oh, well, I was just sort of thinking about the way it was 5 years ago, but obviously it's not anymore.
So Reform UK by far and away are the ones who, no, it must be this way, absolutely this way, no compromise. But in second place would be major parties in this country, the Green Party.
Greens?
Green Party, yeah.
Well,
now
the Greens got their arse handed to them by Ed Miliband in Parliament this week when he just went, you say you're all green, but you're a massive
I'm going to do a video on this actually, because the Green Party are making a huge mistake.
Okay, can we talk about that in a moment? Tell me about the mistake in one moment, because we've got a super chat in from Tinkernazer, and it's a little bit off-piste, but I'll allow it. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Did you see Trump's RNC speech? While initially more muted, humble, and reflective in some ways, it soon devolved into another MAGA conspiracy rant. I don't think he's changed in any major way. Well, the same thing happened when he won the election back in 2016. He made a speech where everyone's like, oh, he sounds conciliatory. He sounds like he wants to bring everyone together. And then within a day, he was back to, lock him up. All this nonsense. Yeah. Anyway, go on with the Greens have
so the Green Party, in reality, are really easy to attack, because everywhere they have power, they don't have power, because they say, we need these things. Oh, we need to stop using such polluting transport. Oh, so we need more rail. Yeah, we need more rail. Okay, we're going to build a railway. No, not here, not where we are.
Yeah, well, they famously oppose HS2.
Yeah, so, well, the thing is, it's not just, you can oppose HS2 in terms of how it was implemented. That's fine. You can say there were better ways to do it. But if you ask people from the Green Party, so what would you do? It's like, we don't know. Well, should we do this? No. Should we do this? No. So it becomes this meme that the Green Party we need more trains. Okay, so we'll build these railways. No railways, just
not like
trains. That. And well, it's specific. The meme is specifically no railways, just trains. But it goes beyond it as well. So the one of the leaders of the Green Party is saying, I'm going to block this sort of electrification. Effectively, he's going to block this scheme.
Yeah, this is Adrian Ramsey, the deputy leader. Yeah.
Isn't he a co-leader?
Yeah, the co-leader. Sorry.
But they'd have to. It's like, so in order to because Labour, remember, have reversed the Tory policy. They are committed to electric cars from 2030, like as in new cars being sold being electric cars, right?
Oh, has that been restored back to 2030?
Well, it's in the manifesto.
2035.
It's in the manifesto.
Cool.
So yeah. So
electric cars are boss, by the way.
But we need the infrastructure.
Don't knock it till you tried it, mate.
We need the infrastructure.
Just plug it in your house.
Right, okay.
Just plug it into your house.
If I go somewhere that's half the range of the car, right?
Oh, range anxiety is greenwashing made up by all companies.
Will you listen? Will you stop?
There's electricity everywhere. Where can you go where there's no electricity, Phil?
The south of England, because this is the problem.
The south of England, there's no electricity
all of the production is in the north, and then it gets transferred via cables to the south because they're too NIMBYs to build their own pissing power stations. Largest power production in the country. The two of the largest power producers in the country are right near me, driving distance near me. It's all going down to the south, which is really inefficient, massive energy loss. There needs to be more energy production where the pissing people live, which is south of England, the most densely populated part of the country.
We want nuclear power station in Croydon.
Okay.
Yeah? Is that what we're going for?
I don't know. I don't.
I'll be up for that.
But you need more power production there, and we need to basically double the capacity on the grid in order to decarbonize transport, because there's no reason why there should be any carbon producing transport at source, we can have buses, trains, cars, motorbikes, everything that it goes on a road at any rate, or on land, shall we say. I don't know about planes, but everything that goes on land does not need to itself pollute. Yes, there's pollution down the road, and
well, lorries are not quite there yet in terms of the weight of the lorries compared with.
They can be,
how far they can go.
but nonetheless, it can't happen. It can't because, for example, I mean, you have lorries anyway that don't really have to use the big diesel guzzler, that are not diesel guzzlers. There's alternatives for lorries, but nonetheless, you still need the infrastructure, and the infrastructure doesn't really exist in the south of England. The cables are there, but not the source of power. So when you've also got the Green Party say, yeah, solar, oh yeah, we're totally in favour of solar. Oh, you want to build it here? No. So they're really easy to attack, and yet this is a huge mistake for them. The reason they do this is because they have targeted places that are very NIMBY. But here's the interesting thing. So the Green Party won 4 seats at this election. Now, that sounds brilliant for them, but they won it in all these NIMBY places. But the Green Party did very well. They didn't win any seats, but they did very, very well in a lot of urban areas. Now, in urban areas, not so NIMBY. So the Green Party actually have the potential to go for a lot of growth, genuine growth, winning way more than 4 seats, because they're seriously pushing Labour close in a lot of or they did at this election, in a lot of those urban places, right?
Yeah.
And if they were to, but the thing is, if they want to try and hold on to the seats they won this time, they're going to have to be very NIMBY. And this is going to be exposed. This is because Labour obviously don't want, the Greens are challenging them on their turf in some areas. Labour don't want that. So they're going to noisily call out the Green Party hypocrisy on green issues. And the Green Party, by trying to hold on to these NIMBY areas, are going to do it, and they're going to make themselves look really weak in the areas where they actually have got the potential for greatest growth. So I think the Green Party are going to be making strategic errors here, because they could easily not join the NIMBY crowd. Yes, they'll probably then lose those seats next time, but they have the potential to win seats with voters with who, because this is ultimately the problem for the Green Party. They've just tried to win votes everywhere. That's why their vote is still really inefficient. Whereas what they should do is identify there's actually a lot of votes where they wouldn't have to be such hypocrites. But that means risking the seats they already have. That's their dilemma. And I don't know that there are a large enough
Green New Deal
party
in the UK under Ed Miliband. I mean, do we need a Green Party? I mean, what are they adding to the mix here?
Well, it's always, even as a Labour supporter, I won't say we should have a 2-party state. Having different parties is always good.
But what is the Green Party offering that the Labour Party isn't? Because Labour's going.
It's niche issues, isn't it? It's fringe issues. Something pops up, they jump on it. It's like, that's what it's about. It's about trying to grab as many votes as they can, so they can say we have this much support in public.
Murphy in the chat is saying there's so much scope here in Norfolk for solar and wind generation, which is true. I mean, that's true
everywhere
across the country.
So many bits of land.
Effective ban on onshore wind farms, wind turbines, has been demolished by the Labour government. Hopefully in the next few years we'll see a lot more wind generation. And also I was seeing about solar panels in fields. You can have sheep in those fields. So fields that are being used for sheep at the moment can also have solar panels in at the same time. So you get dual use out of the field. And Nova is saying, as an electric car owner living in the north, like me, well, I'm not an owner. I'm my partner is. I'm just sleeping on her couch. It's a pain in the rear end. 30 minutes to get 80% of battery. Charging at my house could take 7 hours for a full battery, 200 miles. Where are you going? Like, we go to Liverpool quite a lot because my parents are there and Kat's parents are there, and like, we have no problem. I mean, we charge the car overnight. It costs £3 to get it up to like 80%, and then we drive to Liverpool. And then when we're in Liverpool, it takes half an hour, well, 20 minutes actually, to charge it up when we're in Liverpool at one of the fast chargers. And we go and get a coffee. I honestly haven't finished drinking my coffee by the time it's full of energy.
Yeah, but
But
those
yeah,
places aren't everywhere. You're talking about going from your home to a city.
yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm saying that there is more infrastructure that needs to be built, and we need to upgrade the grid to deal with the extra load that is going to be put on, and we need extra
And as I
energy
say, a lot of the
generation.
energy we are generating now is wasted because it's disproportionately being produced in bits of the country that are empty, like Scotland and the north of England,
Mm.
and consumed where the people are, but there's very little energy production. It's incredibly inefficient.
Yeah. Ian says 100% of all energy comes from the sun. That's where you're wrong, sir. What about geothermic energy,
Exactly.
which comes from molten
Precisely.
rock in the ground? But there you go. Question.
And I'm pretty sure the moon has got more to say about the tides than the sun does. There are solar tides, but they're quite weak.
Yes, but if you get the solar and the lunar tides matched, or when there's been a lot of rainfall, you can have a very high king tide. Moving on, Johan says a question: how feasible is tidal energy generation for the UK, and is it, or are there plans to that effect? Now, I've got my own opinion on this because I think that tidal power is a fantastic idea, but I'm sort of feeling now it's a bit like hydrogen in that it seems to always be 10 years away, and you've got a bit of a untiable knot, which is this: you need to put mechanical things in the sea, and the sea doesn't like mechanical things.
No,
it eats them.
It's what. So, from my view on it, you're quite right. In terms of time, there's only so many places you can put it. You can't obviously disrupt shipping. It's very bad for the marine life. But then we are very bad for the marine life. So you could also argue if it can help reduce our carbon output, I would still be in favour of it. But it's not going to be a major piece of the jigsaw. And in terms of the specific plans, I've not heard Labour talk about tidal at all.
No, and I think that there is. I mean, it would be fantastic if we could harness that power, because the tidal range in Bristol is like 10 meters. The tidal range in Liverpool is almost the same. Some of the highest tidal ranges in the world. That is a vast quantity of water coming in and out twice a day.
When you consider we are an island, we are a northern island that doesn't have a northern climate. Like, we're in a really great position to really go to town with low carbon energy. And it's absolutely mad that we are now in a position, after 14 years of the Tories, they kept boasting about how we're this world leader on renewable energy and stuff. No, that was under Labour, you arseholes. When the latest now is we are close to not even meeting our Paris Agreement legal obligations. That's how far they've taken us backwards. They've been trading on what Labour did in power, and actually they've taken us to the point where we're close to not even meeting our legal obligations, the bare minimum that was agreed internationally, not by every country in the world, but by the ones who did, which included us. So that's how far we've fallen back. We were on a trajectory to be basically almost completely reliant on low carbon energy by now.
Yeah.
It would have had almost no.
Had the Tories not got in.
Yeah.
Had the Tories not got in. That's that's the kicker, isn't it? That's
why I say Tony Blair's biggest failure was not introducing PR.
Yeah.
It fed into so many other things. So many things couldn't have happened if he'd have just done that.
Yeah.
And he had the mandate to do it. That's the thing. It's not that, he should have, because, sometimes people say, they should have done that. And it's like, right, he had the mandate to do it. He told people he was going to do it and they voted for him. He could have just done it.
Yeah.
He even had he had a free mandate to do it. He could have done it in a way that he thought would have favoured Labour. He could have done it in the shadiest way possible, the most anti-Tory way possible. He was completely free to organise it as he liked, completely free hand by the public. And no. So that was by far and away his biggest failure.
Yeah. Can't disagree with that. I think it was, who was it in the chat? Nova talking about Heighton only having 4 fast charging points. There's one, it doesn't seem to be on Google Maps, but there's one if you go to the Beacon services, which is on the M62, M57 junction, and there's a bunch of fast chargers there. Just saying. Anyway, moving on. Truthy says legalised humanist marriage in England and Wales 20 years after Scotland and 8 years after Northern Ireland did it. Make humanism part of a religious and work views curriculum, as it is in Wales. I don't disagree with that. Ken Do says there needs to be more research into the effect it has on all things that live in the sea. Well, yeah, this is there are issues with tidal power that you don't have. Yeah, I know, but we keep putting money into it. There's a story in this week's Private Eye, actually, about tidal power and how much government money or our money is being put into research on it. And it's not got anywhere because you put something that moves in the sea wants to eat it. And so your shelf life on these mega projects, it's measured in just years, not decades, which isn't great. It's a lot easier to build offshore wind farms.
I mean, what we need is a lot more research into fusion power, because if we can crack that, we've sorted it, we're done. Yeah. That's large-scale energy production sorted around the world, even with places that don't have a coastline or a windy, empty north.
We got a lovely message here from El Maestro saying, I like Mr. Morehouse's videos because I feel he's literally talking me off a ledge with politics and the world being a dumpster fire. So thanks for that, Uncle Phil.
Yeah, the world still is a dumpster fire, unfortunately.
Oh, I think you're not helping.
but you can just move a little bit away from it sometimes.
Yeah. Andy's saying we have no carbon days. When we don't, I'm assuming you mean on the grid where we don't use any carbon at all. QA Library says with the new wind farms being built in Scotland, they're looking at 400% to 500% of their power just compared with wind. The big issue is upgrading the grid, even Green MPs objecting to it. Well, yeah, that's what we're discussing. Building, should we talk a little bit about Labour's plan to get rid of all bulldoze the NIMBYs and just get stuff built? There are a lot of challenges that Labour's going to face in this. The big one being
a lot of Labour NIMBYs,
not enough builders,
MPs now.
Yeah, there's not enough builders in the country, and are we going to have a deal with the EU to get as many builders as we need to do?
We don't need a deal with the EU. We can just make it easy for builders from Portugal to come over here. Obviously, there's political difficulties with that because it's immigration, isn't it? But that's what we did last time. We don't need the EU's permission to. We just need to make it not a hassle to come and work here, and that's entirely within the gift of the government. They can make it as easy or as difficult as they like for people in the construction industry to come over to Britain and work.
Yeah, on contract jobs, and then they can go home when it's done.
Yeah, you can do it that way, but we need it for years, so it's they'll be straight back again.
Well, maybe.
We'll have to pay for it, mind you.
Admiral Pegasus has anyone considered attaching solar panels to railways? I mean, you could have them
everywhere. Down, there's countries where they have them down central reservations on like the motorway. There's
supermarket car parks.
Anything that points at the sun. Any surface that points at the sun can have a solar panel on it.
And they're more efficient when it's cloudy. Strangely enough, because they get less efficient in the heat.
Yeah. I always remember the funniest example of that was years ago, and it was like this on the air conditioners on trains when it was really hot couldn't work because it was too hot.
Well, talking of trains, I mean, there is an internet network around the UK, a secondary one, just that goes along the train tracks. It's part of their infrastructure of communications, send signals along the railways. And one of the things that drives me absolutely up the wall about British trains, not just the fact that they cost an absolute fortune and they never come on time and they get cancelled all the time. The internet's crap. The internet is absolutely bloody awful.
In this country, it's absolutely terrible.
It's a joke.
I mean, if you compare like South Korea, if you compare, I mean, that's obviously the most extreme comparison. Yeah, it's like they think we're in the dark ages.
Yeah. And we're talking about setting up, booster boxes along the actual railway tracks. I understand. Okay, maybe if you're going through some farmer's field on some branch line in Cumbria, okay, fair enough. But I'm talking about going up and down the East Coast and West Coast main lines. You cannot keep internet. And going to Liverpool on the Transpennine Express. Oh my God! Yeah. Don't get me started. Alec Barrett, thank you very much for the super chat. For tidal power, just use copper coatings. Easy. It's not that easy because like there's lots of stuff in the ocean, and you say, well, you just use copper casing, so that'll stop the barnacles, I guess. But it doesn't stop bits of seaweed that's floating in the water from getting and going into your gearbox and clogging it up. I mean, there's a lot of things that you've got to bear in mind, and I think the big problem with it is the shelf life. Is that any big project, it'll only be there for a few years before it gets eaten by the sea, and the maintenance is through the roof compared with
obviously maintenance in
or...
the sea is way more than it would. It's like so in terms of access, the harder it is to access something, the more it'll cost to maintain. That's also a factor.
Johan saying seawater loves to eat copper. Seawater loves to eat everything. Yeah.
It's what I do. If I had an old hard drive I wanted to basically get rid of, I chucked it in a bucket of salt water for a bit.
It's not coming back from that. One Aggie Pagan says, apparently one of the big problems is land value. Many building companies already have permission to land, but are waiting for the value of the land to rise and never actually build.
Yeah, you can deal with that easy. You can just say you've got so long to use it. If it's for a particular purposes, you've got so long to use it or lose it. Use it or lose it.
We need use it or lose it laws. We really do. But yeah, also a builder called up LBC this week and was talking about the fact that half the cost of building anything is just getting all the permissions in place, which can take years. So if Labour can...
True, though, that has been challenged, that little view. But it may be right that there's a lot of cost in terms of the bureaucracy.
Yes.
Sometimes some of the bureaucracy is useful. We don't just want them doing what they like.
Mm. Tinkinator, thank you very much for the super chat, Tinkinator. Are there any plans to deal with land banks? Planning reform won't unblock most housing developments because of this. Could make the problem worse. What's a land bank?
I don't know. Does that mean? I don't know.
I don't know. Sorry. Thank you very much for the super chat, Tinkinator. You can also explain what a land bank is. But
also, even if you told us, we wouldn't know what Labour's policy is on it. So because we don't know what they are.
Eddie Burns is saying also the ocean moves and that creates work. Yeah, we're talking about tidal power, trying to harness it. It's a bit difficult. QA Library, Graham, you need to go to Orkney to look at the research in green energy. I have contacts if you want to go. I'd love to go, but I think it'll be a bit expensive. If it cost me like 200 quid odd to get to freaking London on the train, I shudder to think how much it would cost to get to Orkney. Howard, thank you very much. My intention was just to point out that 3 seats were won new at Brighton Pavilion being held.
Now, I say you may have been the one who tried to call me out because when I said they won 4 seats, I think you'll find they won 3 and retained 1. No, they won 4. When the general election is called, all your seats are defunct, null and void. They're all gone. There are no MPs. Once Parliament's dissolved, there are 0 MPs, which means no party has any seat in the country. The whole map is blank. So they won 4.
Yeah.
The fact that they won 1 in the previous 4 general elections they still won. Like Labour won 412 seats, the Conservatives won 121, the Green Party won 4. That's how it works.
Fantastic. Louise saying one of the biggest problems with tidal power is the Crown Estate who own the seabed. They want loads of dosh and block sites. Well, yeah, I mean that's another issue, but just the pure mechanics of putting anything in the water is it's not a great place, because just think about it, like from maintenance point of view, when it's choppy waters and you've got to send a diver down into the water in the middle of winter and they've got the boat that they've attached to has to stay where it is, there's a lot of logistics and a lot of putting people's lives in jeopardy that you just simply don't need to do with solar panels or onshore wind farms.
How many lords have Labour got rid of so far? It depends find out how many hereditary peers they are, because they're all going.
Yay.
They're the first to go. I mean, some of them, will be decent sorts, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there's no justification for them. And it makes room for all the Labour peers that Keir Starmer needs to shove in. I will just point out, you were talking about the railways. The Financial Times have done some analysis. Have you seen this? What percentage of the railways they reckon by next July will be nationalised? Obviously, we're talking rail companies, train companies.
Don't know.
72%. Because bear in mind, a lot of it's already nationalised.
That's pretty good.
So actually, that means nationalising less than the Conservatives did, ironically, but it gets it up to 72%, which means it'll only be 28% not. And also remember the King's speech, because it went a little bit further than I expected. Talked about this plan of Louise Haig's to finish off contracts early if they weren't meeting the terms of it. So, because Labour really because I keep saying things like, well, there are some contracts, that end at 2030, although there are, as this article points out, like break points in them. So Labour are determined to get them all under public control during this Parliament.
Fantastic.
100% of it, this Parliament.
Yeah, 72% by this time next year, I'll take it.
And as I say, the way they're doing it,
I've been starved.
It's not necessarily, they can get away with the fact that there won't necessarily be instant improvements, although there should be in terms of the delivery of the service, because that profit can then go into the delivery of the service. The government don't need it to go back to the Treasury. Rachel Reeves would probably like some of it to go back to the Treasury, but it's not necessary. But at the same time, nor can the Tories point to national debt and go, but it costs you that much to do this thing that hasn't done anything. It's like, no, it didn't cost us anything.
Yeah, we've got a massive super
saved
chat.
us money.
We've got a massive super chat in, Phil. Thank you so much for the beggar chat from Orion Does Things. £50. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thanks for all the work you guys do. Morning Brew is great to start the day, and Phil has single-handedly taken me from knowing next to nothing to understanding at least some of the crap that goes on. Smiley face. Thank you, Orion Does Things. It's really, really generous of you. It's very kind. And good job, Phil. I hope you subscribe to Phil's channel as well, A Different Bias. A lot of people are. You nearly at 200,000 now.
It goes up slowly, so it'll take a while. It's, what is it now? I can't even know. Don't even know.
193 last time I looked.
Yeah, it's just under 194,000.
Oh, nice. If you start doing American politics, it could go bananas. Trust me.
That would be, it'd take a lot. I'm not going to do anything where, like, I'll do the odd video, but it's just my views. I'm not going to do anything where I don't know as much about American politics. I do British politics.
Mm-hmm.
You have to swim in your own waters.
Yeah. Howard Risby says, planning review, I have reservations about decent arable land being built upon, but there's oodles of ex-industrial could be and should be cleared up. Well, this was a story focusing
on that.
Yeah, I know. This is they're calling it the grey belt, and this was a story that was actually in the Daily Mail where it said, if you live near a disused car park, look out because Labour want to build houses on it. And the response was, won't somebody think of the disused car parks? I thought it was just, what the hell? Seriously?
It's the Telegraph who've gone off there, that have gone crazy at the moment, though. The Daily Mail is almost sane at the moment. They're actually publishing some
compared with the Telegraph.
Mad. Yeah, the Telegraph's completely gone off the deep
end. Bonkers, isn't it? Johnny's saying, thank you very much for the super chat, Johnny. That's very kind. So can't the government use compulsory purchase powers to get the banked land from developers who cause a block on house building? I'm guessing land banking is when you buy land and you just don't develop it, waiting for it to go up in value.
Yeah, I mean, something like compulsory purchase orders are a thing and they're sometimes used. You do have to be careful with your PR on it, that you're not just basically stealing things. But if you can make a public case for it, yes, and they are sometimes used. But that's what I mean. That's what we need, a situation where Labour or the government basically say, look, if you've been given planning permission to use this land for a particular purpose and that particular purpose is needed, then do so. Use it or lose it.
Alan in the chat wants to know, where will the disused cars park? Someone think of the disused cars?
We're sending them to Ukraine, aren't we? The ones that aren't ULEZ compliant.
Yes, which is a fantastic scheme. And Kieran, the van driver, our friend of the channel, he sent his van out there to be used.
He was boasting about passing some transport managers course today. So I haven't asked him, but I assume that means he now gets to tell other people to go to the queues.
Yes, I hope so. I'll have to get him. I'd still have to get him on the channel. Yoni, surely building permissions can start expiring if unused. Not at the moment. And this is a mad thing. Like, until fairly recently, say you owned a house, right? And it was a terrace house in Liverpool, and you didn't live there, you lived in London, and you bought this house for a few quid because they were dead cheap back in the day. And you didn't want to pay the council tax on that. So what you could do, you could literally strip it of its copper pipes, all the wires, everything, make it uninhabitable. And then you only had to pay half council tax. You could board up the windows with metal shutters.
You don't have to pay any council tax if you don't live there.
Yeah. And so where's the incentive to not do that? To not trash a terrace house in Liverpool so that it brings down the house value of all the other houses on that street?
Yeah.
Stuff like that needs to be sorted out. Glenn says, hope Phil is disgusted at me at the revelation about cleverly being into Warhammer.
It's fine. Do you know what? It's the least harmful thing he does. If only more Tory MPs played Warhammer instead of screwing the country over, we'd be in a much happier place.
Did you get one of the little Camp Binface miniatures?
You wouldn't have known about it if I didn't.
I know, but have you got
two
one?
of them? I have two. Because I thought they were going to be limited edition, and they're still doing them, so you can actually just still get them. I got them years ago, but I haven't paid anyone to paint any of them yet.
I'm going to paint mine.
I don't paint, so I get other people to do it. At some point, I will.
The little people come to paint my little miniatures. Cute. I might do like a rainbow sort of effect on his helmet. I was thinking, like make it an LGBTQ plus friendly bin face. QA Library. Wonder if the Defence Review will change the payment of new Dreadnought class submarine, changing from MOD back to the Treasury to pay for it, like the past one of the reasons MOD has issues. And also got Tinkernator replying to Johnny Cophead. They could, but the media, voters and markets may flip, cause a massive problem for Labour if they can't get those stakeholders to at least accept a policy of that sort.
Yeah, let me just, again, there was some really interesting polling. There was some polling here which absolutely blew me away, but was no surprise. So, and I've said in terms of public perception, we'd like taxation. So take inheritance tax, for example. And I've said in the past, there was there's 4% of people will end up paying inheritance tax, about 4% of people. And yet, and I kept saying this, and yet about a third of people think they will. And that's where you have your difficulty with inheritance tax.
Right, yeah.
YouGov did some polling on the King's Speech here. The public generally very happy with it. But if we go down to removing the exemption from VAT for private school fees, more are in favour than against. But there's 34% against. And you think, okay, right, the 7% go to private school, which means by definition, 7% of parents also send their kids to private school, we assume. And not all of those think that VAT shouldn't apply. Some of them are actually going, yeah, it should apply because, duh. But that 34%. Now, at the very least, 27% of those people are screwed over by this tax break. And yet they're against it. Why? Because the media will have told them things like, oh, but it's going to mean like your kid at state school is going to have like a fuller class and there's going to be like more work for the teachers and stuff because they can't go to private school, which is bollocks because the money is going to be used partially to pay for more teachers in state schools. But it just occurs to me, this is roughly the same percentage are against, because if you think about these big campaigns that the media have had, like inheritance tax, VAT on private school fees, and it's roughly the same. I know it's not a very big sample. It's roughly the same percentage who've fallen for both. And I'm thinking, is this the percentage of people who are particularly vulnerable to media crap?
Yes, it is. But Phil, we're going to have to end it there because I could have run away to the doctors and find out if I can get rid of this bloody cough. So dip me in chocolate and throw me to the antibiotics. Thank you very much, Phil, for coming on the show and, dispelling some myths, I guess.
I just have to dispel another one. Vendetta saying, is the bin face miniature only really 28 mil? 28 mil scale does not mean the model is 28 mil. It's like sort of like almost like the base, the width of it. The model is bigger than, or it's potentially bigger than 28 mil. I think that particular one is. But yeah, it's nothing to do with the scale. There's lots of models that are 28 mil scale. It doesn't mean they are 28 mils tall. It's more wide, or the width of the base that they usually come on. Right, anyway, now that we've cleared that up, thank you
to everyone in the chat, everyone who's been watching us this afternoon. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate it. I'll be back at 9 o'clock tonight with the Politics Social roundup of the week. We'll be talking about Trump's assassination attempt. We'll be talking about the discord, I should say, in the DNC. We'll be talking about Farage and Boris Johnson and Liz Truss going to America and other things. So please join us for that. It'll be fun. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.